Good morning. My name is Andrea Leva, and I am the project associate with Literacy Initiatives. And today we have a training measuring learner achievement with roles and goals being presented by Randy Weaver. Randy has been the CLLS coordinator for libraries in Southern and Northern California for 30 years, and most recently was with the San Francisco Public Library from 1999 until 2019. He also served as president of the regional networks SCLLN and BALIT, and he was also the literacy representative for the CLA Legislative and Advocacy Committee. So we have a really great training for everybody. A couple of housekeeping that I just do want to mention beforehand. The training is being recorded. So if you just be aware of that. We also will be sending out the recording link at the end of the training to everybody. And we will be having some sections for questions. So in general, we are expecting to have a large group. And today's event is brought to you by the California Library Literacy Services and the Literacy Initiatives LSTA project. The program is supported in whole or in part by the U.S. Institute of Museum and Library Services under the provisions of the Library Services and Technology Act, administered in California by the state librarian. All right, everybody. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Randy.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see the names, if not the faces, of people who are joining us today. If you've been working with library literacy services for a while, then parts of this presentation will be a review of what you already know. But for others who are relatively new to the library literacy field, much of this information you'll be hearing for the first time. At the conclusion of the webinar, as Andrea said, we hope that you have learned something useful that you can benefit your programs. And along the way, we will be taking time for you to put your questions in the chat box. And although we hope to answer every question thoroughly, don't take offense if we simply say, we'll be getting to that soon, because we are going to be covering a lot of ground this morning. So here's what we'll be covering today. The history of roles and goals, how roles and goals benefits our programs, our tutor learner teams, and CLS services statewide. We'll be looking at the revised roles and goals form, which was revised now. It's been almost 5 years. How roles and goals is used as a part of the learner intake. We'll be talking about roles and goals follow-up, how we measure and record progress. We'll talk a little bit about ways that you can collect evidence of goal achievement. And also we'll be showing you additional information available to support staff and volunteers on the clsliteracy.org website. The underlying philosophy of CLS programs has always involved a focus on the individual needs of the adult learner. The roles and goals process was created as a way to help program staff and volunteer tutors understand what each adult learner wants to accomplish with their improved goals. And an all-important part of the intake process is getting to know the aspirations of our learners. In other words, what brought them to the program. Helping learners establish personal literacy goals is a core part of our CLS values and program essentials. Under CLS values, you see on the screen, our interest is in helping learners meet their goals for improving their basic skills, not solely in helping them achieve increased test scores or grade levels. Learner-centered literacy instruction supports adult learners and their families in their major life roles as community members, workers, family members, and lifelong learners. In fact, our definition of an adult learner actually talks about personal goals. An adult learner should have completed an intake interview, has been assessed and is receiving instruction, and has established one or more literacy goals. Research on adult literacy has shown the importance of focusing on learner goals. Here's one quote from research completed by Gabriel Marquez, and they're simply saying that the motivation to persist is required, and goal setting is an effective tool. Goal setting increases motivation, affects behavior, and serves to energize learners to persist. And of course, we're always interested in increasing the persistence of our adult learners. And of course, adults should be engaged with curricula. This is something that we believe strongly in because they are self-directed and they need an understanding of their own literacy skills. And this becomes very, very important to establish ongoing, clear communication between tutor, learner, and staff. It's necessary to help the learner understand the personal goals and the skills necessary to attain those goals. Goal setting also helps learners think about what they most want to accomplish, actually what brought them to the program. Define what they want to be working on during the time they spend with their tutor and the literacy program. Take ownership of their instruction and become a partner in learning. As we always say, this is not a top-down approach to instruction. We find out what the needs of the adult learner are and craft the curriculum to meet those needs. We want to make sure that we stay focused on what's important in their lives and motivate themselves, as well as build self-confidence based on the successful achievement of personal goals. So the roles and goals form that's been created is the tool that we use to record learner goals and track progress toward achieving those goals. By understanding what's important for our learners, a portion of our tutoring sessions can include time to focus on those particular goals. And there's an example on the screen that's fairly obvious. If a learner says they would like to use technology more effectively, whatever that means to them, then at least a portion of the tutoring session needs to be spent actually at a computer or other device, practicing those skills. Then at a minimum of every 6 months, program staff will also be checking in with each tutor learner team to see how they are progressing with the learner's stated goals. At the follow-up, the staff should provide the tutor with a copy of the prior roles and goals form if they don't already have one. And at that point, they can indicate if they've been making progress on certain goals or perhaps even met some goals. The process of updating the roles and goals form is a regular ongoing cycle that will be repeated for as long as the learner is active in the program. One of the benefits of tracking learner achievement is that we can use the aggregated information to inform stakeholders of the effectiveness of our local programs. With the collected data, libraries are able to make the case for the effectiveness of literacy services to stakeholders, such as city councils, county boards of supervisors, and even the state legislature when it's time to refund the CLS programs. We're going to stop now for any questions just on an overview of roles and goals, and why it was set up and how it's designed to be used. Do we have questions in the chat box?
No questions yet.
Wow.
But just for everybody, if you do have questions, this is a really good time to put them in the chat if you'd like. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have these sort of pauses throughout the training, but please go ahead and put in any questions or comments for Randy in the chat box.
We have a lot to cover. So first question is, do you show the learner the roles and goals form? We're actually going to be talking about this next, how to use the roles and goals process at intake. There are probably better ways of using it than just showing the form to the learner. In fact, that may be the last thing you want to do, but we'll talk about that. Good question. Okay, shall we? Well, one more question. For each learner, how often should they repeat the goals form? Generally, it's between 4 and 6 months, I think. So the tutor learner team actually has time to work on the goals, and hopefully they'll be able to show some progress. And we'll also talk about that a little more as we forge ahead. All right. I think I'm going to pull the plug on the questions and continue. We'll be talking about the form itself and how to use it, and a little bit about how it was created. Okay. The original roles and goals form was used for over 20 years, but about 5 years ago, if not earlier, we heard from literacy program staff that the roles and goals form was really in need of updating to reflect the needs of adult learners in the 21st century. And to begin working on this task, the state library put together an excellent committee of literacy coordinators from around the state to start working on the roles and goals revision. Feedback from library staff was received and reviews made incorporating their ideas into the form. Early revisions of the form were showcased at CLA and at the CLLS staff conference in 2018. What we came out with in the end was a new form that included new goals in each of the 4 adult learner roles: lifelong learner, worker, home, family member, and community member and citizen. The revised standard goals were selected by the Roles and Roles Committee based on the suggestions they heard from the field. If you remember the previous Roles and Goals form, the format is essentially the same. The content in terms of the specific common goals, the ones that are pre-printed on the form, are what generally changed, as well as another important thing that we'll get to in just a minute. And that is that one of the things that people thought would be quite important to add to the form was the ability to track making progress. We all know that sometimes a goal can be a long-term endeavor for a tutor learner team. So the general thinking was it would be great if we could actually show on the reporting form that progress is being made. With a revised process, these dates can now be tracked and reported to help us better understand the learner's path to goal achievement. And I think the important thing to remember, it really is a path. It happens over the course of building skills, building confidence, and it's wonderful to be able to sit down and talk about the progress being made with your learner as you're updating the roles and goals form. So the initial use of the roles and goals form, we had a question about that just moments ago. During the initial intake, every new adult learner should be interviewed by a literacy staff member in order to understand and record their personal goals. Obviously, and I say obviously because if you look at that roles and goals sheet, it's not necessarily easy to follow. The learner should not fill out the roles and goals form independently. The learner's goals are discovered through a conversation. I think that conversation is all important. Conversation between literacy staff, adult learner, and the tutor. Some learners may not initially grasp the concept of personal goals. And because of that, many CLS staff members have created alternative, creative ways of collecting the important information. I'm sure each of your programs has their own way of doing this, their own list of questions that they might use. But in case you want a few ideas, here's some more. What would you like to be able to do personally at work, in the community, or at home that you can't do now? I know you want to read better, but what would you like to read better? I know you want to write better, but what would you like to write? Think of yourself at work or at home or in your community. What would you like to do with your improved reading and writing skills? Are there things you've always wanted to do but couldn't because of your limited skills? The adult role map or some other visual cue can also be a way of starting the conversation. This is used by some CLS programs as a way to open up the conversation and make it easier to fill out that roles and goals form. I think it's effective because, as I said, it's very visual and it ties directly in with the adult roles as seen on the roles and goals form. You can see it's simply done as a kind of a mind map format. In the center, the question is, what is it that you would like to be able to do that you can't do now? This helps the learner start thinking about what brought them to the program. And then we have the 4 boxes: lifelong learner, worker, home and family member, and community member citizen. So through the course of the interview, you can start jotting down the things that they mention in terms of abilities that they would like to enhance and putting them in the correct box. And then this information can then be transferred to the roles and goals form. So when you first use the roles and goals form with the learner, you're looking at 3 types of goals. The first one are the standard goals, those that are pre-printed on the form. And these are the most common goals that we've seen in literacy programs around the state. And it's important to remember that you can actually elaborate on these standard goals. For instance, if there's a goal that's important to your learner about writing a note or a message or text, you can be more specific and drill down to who they're writing this text to. And that provides a little more focus on what you're going to be actually doing in your tutoring session. Another way to set goals is to write in goals that are of interest to your learner. And while you always use the month and the year that those goals were set. one of the things that I like to remind our tutors is that you don't want to be overly ambitious. Setting too many goals can be overwhelming, but help the learner think in terms of what's most important and what they can actually accomplish or show progress on within the next 4 to 6 months. And of course, once the form is completed, you want to make sure that a copy is provided to the office, and also the tutor and learner also receive a copy. All right, we're going to stop for more questions. I see there are some in the chat box.
Yes, just to answer Georgina's last question here. Yes, this recording is going to be made available to everybody who registered. And Randy, yes, I believe there were some additional questions in there. And for everybody, I know somebody had asked about the adult role model map. So there is a link in the chat, and I'll paste it again, where you can find all of those documents.
All right, what was the last question we took? What's new here? All right, Rebecca, for each learner, how often should they repeat the goals form? They should update it at least every 4 to 6 months. Tutors report goals in progress and met goals on monthly reports. Some programs do use monthly reports, so this helps the program staff keep up to date on individual progress. Literary initiatives to everyone. It's great and inspiring to hear examples, and I hope we hear more promising and best practices. Just to note, each program has the freedom to develop their own check-in schedules. That's correct. And procedures, as long as they have cumulative yearly data to report on the state. Okay. And as I said, it's recommended every 4 to 6 months that you do an update. There's a question about monthly reports from Tracy. Do you find it easy to get your tutor to submit the level of detail in your monthly reports? Some of our tutors have to be reminded a couple of times. We aren't specifically talking about the monthly report facet of collecting information, but I'm sure that can be an ongoing discussion that you have maybe in your regional groups. Yes, there is a digital fillable roles and goals form on the state library website, and we'll take a look at how to locate that in a while. Adult role map is also on the website, and Andrea put the link right below that to that page. So it really is designed to be part of an ongoing conversation. So I think using an online form might not support that discussion. So it's good, I think, that students have contact with the staff themselves and the tutors. Georgiana says, will this recording be made up? Yes, we talked about that. Tracy asks if tutors should consider developing SMART goals with their learners. That's an interesting idea. I like that. Can you please show the slide with the questions to ask learners when the concept of personal goals don't resonate with them? This will all be sent out in a PDF, and also there'll be a recording of the training. So we should be able to circle back to that at another time. Okay, I think we completed this last round of questions.
Oh, Randy, I believe there was one more question from Evelina. Can or should a goal be documented retroactively?
Oh, yes, we're actually going to get to that
Oh,
right
great.
now, I believe, when we talk about the roles and goals follow-up. That's a perfect lead-in. And here we are. At a minimum of every 6 months, or 4 to 6 months generally, literacy staff will be checking in with each tutor learner pair to see how they're progressing. At that point, tutors and learners can indicate that they're making progress on certain goals and possibly have even met some goals. So this is an opportunity for tutors and learners to check progress, see if the instruction is on course for what the learner wants to accomplish, make sure that the learner's needs are being met, help the learner see that they are making progress. So this is, of course, important for increasing motivation and persistence within our programs. This helps also build confidence in the tutor-learner team, the tutor-learner pair, as goals are achieved. And it helps motivate the learner and tutor to keep up the good work and continue with their tutoring sessions. So again, when you're doing the update, use the month, year to indicate goal set, making progress, and goal met. It's important to remember that there always needs to be a date in the goal set column for every goal that you're showing progress for or showing that the goal has been met. In order to document change as happened in the life of the adult learner, we need a starting point and an ending point. If for some reason you receive a roles and goals form and there isn't a date that this goal was met, just have a conversation with the tutor and learner and see if they can approximate when that goal was talked about and when they decided to start working on it. The update is also a time when you can reset the same goal or remove goals that are no longer important to your learner. Resetting the same goal would be useful if it reflects a higher level of competence and or fluency. For instance, your student may want to write a letter again, but in a more formal style, or she or he may want to read a more complex newspaper or magazine, share a more complicated book with his or her child. The goal set do not have to be for the first time goals. And if, once again, the new goal set can show either the date that the student decided to set the new goal or the date that the form was administered. The other or write-in goals are updated in a similar manner. And something that I often used when I was coordinating literacy programs was the unanticipated achievement section of the roles and goals form. These are things that just happen as a result of being in your tutoring program that the learner maybe didn't anticipate, things they notice in their lives that have become easier, abilities that they've actually added to their repertoire, things that help them be more effective in the real world. The example here on the screen is they're now able to read street signs, street names, and can find new places more easily. Maybe that wasn't one of the specific goals they set, but they've noticed that it's become easier since being in the program. So once updated roles and goals form is completed and sent in to the literacy office, it's important to take time to celebrate what's been accomplished. Even if it's just a small step on the road to accomplishing a long-term goal, it's important to take note of that and really thank the learner, thank the tutor, and be ready to go on with some new goals and upcoming achievements. So make sure a copy of the updated form is placed in the learner's file in the literacy office. Also want to make sure you provide a copy for the tutor and learner so they can refer to this during their tutoring sessions. All right, any questions about how the update of the form works? We'll go back to our chat box here. A question from Evelina. Can or should a goal be documented retroactively? Yes, of course, during the 4 to 6 months between the original goal being set and the updated roles and goals form being worked on, things can happen. Goals can be met. When you're documenting a goal, either progress being made or the goal being met, you can actually set the month that actually happened in. It doesn't have to always be the date the roles and goals form was update form was administered. We just wanted to remind you that the digital form that's available online is an Excel form, not an online form. It's easy for staff to use in the Excel format. I think that's why we created it that way. From Anna, I noticed the roles and goals form April 2020 works from a digital form. I was thinking my online tutors will go over the form together with their students. I think most people would actually just provide the physical form for tutor learners to start working with when it's update time. If you have the digital form and wanted the Excel file and in a digital file, you could send that to your tutor. I don't know why that wouldn't be a problem. And from Allison, hi Allison, I think I might train tutors to use the roles and goals mind map. Yeah, the one that we showed earlier. In San Francisco, when I was working there, we used the mind map as part of the initial intake as a way of just start discussing the whole idea of learner goals. But that's also, I mean, it's very simple to use. It could be something that the tutors could easily be comfortable using. Question from Tracy, are these forms stored so you can go back and see all the progress the learners has made? That's certainly simple to do. It's what we used to also do in San Francisco. We would keep the current roles and goals form that's being worked on, and we'd also keep any older forms that had been completed. Okay. I hope everybody is getting the questions answered that they need. We have at least a couple more times to stop, so you'll have more chances. With the introduction of the new roles and goals form, we're also encouraging programs to collect evidence or indicators of goal achievement. Evidence might consist of things that you can actually point to, which are physical examples, an application that might have been filled out correctly, a letter or email written to a family member, a book read for the first time, a note written to a child's teacher, or something along those lines. Evidence could also consist of a general conversation with the learner in which he or she describes goals that they feel they have achieved or that they feel progress has been made. The third type of indicator might be the tutor actually witnessing progress. Maybe examples of progress which the learner may not even have thought of. This is not uncommon for tutors to see some abilities enhanced that the learner may not initially have recalled. So tutors are encouraged to discuss these observations with their learners and report these achievements too. By collecting the specific evidence or indicators of goal achievement, we can have confidence that the roles and goals process accurately represents the accomplishments and success stories of our learners. It's also a great opportunity to collect anecdotal information and share that on your final report. You often hear some great stories from the tutor-learner teams about evidence that they found in progress of the learner. And I think also importantly, it also provides the tutor and learner team with an opportunity to review their work together and think about what they have achieved. So there's a couple of tools that you could use to just have the discussion of what constitutes evidence of progress. This is something that's also included on the CLS Rules and Goals webpage. This is simply a tool that we put together to help collect evidence. It's laid out so it corresponds to the adult roles. It has a place to describe the evidence and also a place to show when that was discussed or collected. The notes regarding achievements can be kept by the learner and tutor as a record of what's been accomplished through their tutoring sessions. And as I mentioned, if you think this form might be useful, it is on the CLS Rules and Goals webpage. Another tool that some programs have used, and this is something that goes back quite a ways, it's the learner portfolio. But the portfolio is simply a collection of the learner's work made up of snapshots of the various activities taking place in the tutoring session. The kind of things that go into the portfolio are sort of like on an artist's portfolio might include the best pieces to display in their portfolio. The learner will choose work which they are most proud of and which they feel shows evidence of their personal progress. The choice of what to include in the portfolio is completely up to the adult learner, but it really should be something that occurs in the conversation with the tutor. I think the strength of learner portfolios is that tutor-learner teams can integrate the portfolio use into their regular sessions, setting aside time every few weeks to discuss what to include. And of course, since portfolios reflect an individual's progress, each one will be very different. It's not only a great tool for motivation, both for the tutor and the learner, but it can be reviewed by the tutor-learner team when it comes time to update the rules and goals form. And it's always a good idea, if you can, to include a brief little note from the standpoint of the learner's own view of why they chose this item as showing progress. So you could just date it, get a quick statement of why they think this piece is important to include in their portfolio, and maybe also talk about what they learned when they were working on doing this. Now, as promised, I want to look briefly at what's available online at libraryliteracy.org. If you go to that helpful website, you'll see a tab that says For Coordinators. And then under that, there's Roles and Goals. There's a wide range of materials, most of which we've talked about in this morning's session, that are available. There's just a general introduction to roles and goals. There's a document I think answers a lot of your questions that even I didn't get a chance to answer today. It's frequently asked questions about roles and goals. There's a general guidelines form. There's the form itself. There's the Excel version. Thanks to Shasta for sharing that. There's the evidence sheet, collecting evidence and indicators of achievement that we just looked at. There's also a description of how to use a learner portfolio when you're collecting evidence of progress. There's the role map that we looked at as a way of beginning the conversation. There's also an old video of me. I think this one may be on the list to have updated here on the website. And there's also the last slide. So these slides are going to be updated as well on the website. And of course, one of the things that I always want to mention during these presentations, that there's always excellent support waiting for you in your regional networks. Regional networks are full of experienced coordinators and staff, and it's a great place to share your own experiences with roles and goals, your own tips for making it work a little more effectively. So you might want to actually put that aside as a discussion point for one of your meetings. And I know you'll always learn a lot from your colleagues. I know I always did. So I think we're going to get caught up on all the remaining questions now. If there's something I didn't cover well when I was answering the questions, please, we can circle back and check on that. Okay, let's go back to where we left off. A great comment from our literacy initiative staff. If you wanted to create a mind map with someone you're working online with, you could use a tool like Google Jamboard, but it would require some digital proficiency and training. Just a reminder, CLS staff are happy to talk over ideas for setting goals for learners, maybe some goals you rarely see in real life. Another comment from literacy initiatives. Some programs help learners develop portfolios with evidence of learning achievements and goals. There is no statewide standardized way to store records. It's really up to the individual programs to develop their own methods. And that's true. The portfolio process is really most helpful as part of an ongoing discussion between the tutor and learner, a way for them to take stock in what they're working on, to look for indicators of progress based on the actual work being done in the tutoring sessions. It's also mentioned that there's a lot more information on utilizing roles and goals on the website. The roles and goals guidelines is pretty inclusive of everything you need to know about how the roles and goals should be used. Question from Adelaida. Literacy program focuses on adult learners or young children. This is an adult program. We do have a family literacy component. And these tools were all developed for working with the adult learners. What are some other questions you want to put forth and spend a little time answering? We actually may be ending a little early, but so we have plenty of time. Are roles and goals ever used in ESL or family literacy programs? I'll defer that to our literacy initiative staff. Any comments about that?
So that's a great question, Evelina, and the answer is yes, yes, yes. For ESL, we will be using roles and goals to establish learning goals and measure progress. And in family literacy, there are special family literacy questions. They are on the reporting form, and they're also in the family literacy documents on our website, and I'll post the link up there. But there are a couple of questions you should specifically be using with your family literacy members. So for ESL learners, please use the list that we have and add some to it, whatever may be missing. And for family literacy, we'll put the link up. Allison, if you have anything you want to add, go ahead. Cheryl, for Career Online High School, if you have a Career Online High School student who is working with a tutor and you want to count that Career Online High School student as an adult learner, yes, you should be using roles and goals with them. If you just have a Career Online High School student who's working without a tutor to achieve their goal of getting a high school diploma, you don't need to use roles and goals because you wouldn't be counting them as a CLLS learner unless they had a tutor. So you can't double count them for just being enrolled in COHS, but if someone is working towards some of the high school diploma goals with a tutor, you may count them as a learner. So.
Anyone else have any burning questions or just anything you'd like to open up for a general discussion? Well, as I said, as we started the presentation, I really hope you begin to understand that roles and goals is really a very important tool for getting to know the needs of the learner, and also as a way of circling back and revisiting the goals that the learner set in order to, document progress and achievement. And it's very important for tutors and learners to keep this ongoing conversation active in their sessions, and having to report on roles and goals data semi-annually is sort of one way of forcing the point, but it's a natural thing to be doing if you're a tutor-learner team. Sheila Mitchell says, creating inquiries to explore what learners really want to focus on is key. That's true. Just getting them to understand the difference between an adult literacy, a library literacy program, and other adult education programs. The fact that we are learner-centered, we're centered on the needs of the adult and not curriculum-centered. We're not going to be putting them all through the same curriculum. So that's why this process of ascertaining the goals is so important for us. from Catherine. Okay, Kathy. What suggestions do you have if tutors are tardy or never complete the submitted forms? That is a great question to put out there, Kathy. Everybody has tips on dealing with those tutor learner teams. So I'm sure there's some people who have suggestions. Perseverance, that's my suggestion. Don't give up. Allison has a good comment. I might begin with asking why they are late or don't complete the forms. It may be a number of issues that are preventing tutors from submitting on time. That's always a good point. You want to understand what the challenges are for that team. So general question from Evelina. How other programs capture roles and goals statistics to help make the state report? I think that particular question would be a great one to discuss at your regional network meetings or other online CLS meetings. Other people have great and effective ways of doing that. So to make it run more smoothly for you, it's often good to talk to others about what's worked for them. Our literacy initiative staff says it might might be good to remind programs that they aren't going to be able to get funding if they can't submit data. Also, call, catch them in person and make an appointment to do it together. Sheila says sometimes it's like being a detective. Just keep asking and maybe looking at new ways of asking the same question. Yeah, Sheila also mentions that sometimes tutor learner teams kind of take a detour and start working in other directions on other goals. And sometimes they can hesitate to go back to that roles and goals form that was completed 6 months ago. But it's still an important part of the process. And maybe they did drop some goals that were initially set. They can always spend that update time setting the new ones. Kathy has a suggestion. I never use the terms roles and goals with learners. That's not a bad idea. I use the language in the mind map. That's why the mind map is there. I know if someone asked me about my goals, my mind would go blank. That's true. And that's why we have all those other ways of paraphrasing the question, what are your goals? And of course, the adult role map really helps walk the tutor learner team through that process. Wow, these are all great questions. And I really appreciate the fact that Bev, Allison, and others are here to help answer some of these. There's a lot of terms that we use as library literacy staff that sometimes don't resonate thoroughly with our participants. And Allison says, I feel the same as you, Kathy. Sometimes she doesn't rely on other terms that we commonly use, like literacy, family literacy, and ESL. Those are internal distinctions of reporting versus language that we want to use with the learners, that is important to the learners. she reminds us that language is powerful. Goals can feel intimidating to many people. Yes, that's absolutely true. Evelina mentions that during our initial assessment, we always ask, what are your dreams and aspirations? I like the word dreams. I think aspirations may be another one of those words that doesn't always resonate, but dreams does resonate. Any other questions? Beverly, do you have anything important to add from your perspective?
I don't, except for that sometimes when we think of questions that we want answered, then we get more out of the documents that are already on the website. So now that your mind is full of ideas and you're starting to ask questions, I do recommend you go back to the website and look at all the documents that have been carefully crafted there. If you are working on family literacy, you go back and you look at those guidelines for family literacy, because all learning is scaffolding, right? You have to have a place to hang the information, and the more you build out, the more knowledge you have, the more questions you have, the more you're going to learn from the really good documents that are already up on the website. So I'm just going to say this was step one. And Randy, I just really want to thank you so much. This is really exciting. We have lots of new folks to literacy on here, lots of new coordinators, AmeriCorps members, and tutors, and this was really helpful. And always, exactly, please remember, always ask your friends, your neighbors, those statewide networking calls, your fellow AmeriCorps members, and use the documents on the website. So Randy, thank you so much for everything you said today. And hopefully this will be the start of more and wonderful discussions. So thank you.
Yes, thanks everyone for joining us. And I look forward to hearing more from you, any questions that you might have. So thanks, Andrea, for all your support today. And Beverly, it's always good to have you with us. So we're going to have a great, what is this?
I think there's a couple new questions.
Great.
Yeah,
yeah, I noticed
Andrea.
a couple last questions in here. If we want to just, Randy, if you want to just answer those last ones. And I do just want to mention to everybody that there is an evaluation survey that I will be putting in the link right now in the chat. So if you can just take a minute to, click on that link, have it open, and then once we're off of this, you can just fill that out. But yes, Randy, I didn't want to miss these last couple questions that came in.
Thanks, Andrea. There's a great question from Dora. What should we do if the learner does not achieve his goals when doing the roles and goals update? Well, that was one of the reasons that coordinators from around the state really wanted to add the progress being made date on the form. So I think the progress being made can be useful, especially for long-term goals that are going to take some time for the tutor learner team to actually accomplish. Think about the small steps being made and the changes in the abilities of the learner, and mark progress being made column. And I think that's very important to be able to do that. So you still feel like the road is being taken toward the learner goals. Allison already answered that question. And there's the link to the survey that Andrea just put up. There's a question from Mary E. I'm a brand new literacy coordinator, and this is my first CLS webinar. Thank you for the presentation. She's interested in attaining proof of attendance today. Andrea, I'm not sure how that might work.
Yeah, Mary, I can email you directly and we can figure that out if you need anything. We don't usually send out a participant list, but I can certainly help you out if you do need some proof of this. We do have the list of who actually has joined. So you can just email me directly.
So while you're here, Andrea, going forward, what is going to be shared from this presentation today?
Yeah, So a reminder for everybody, as we mentioned at the beginning, we are going to be sharing the recording link. So folks that had to maybe jump off early can have this, and also a PDF of the slides that Randy put together.
All right, so it'll be great to go back and review this, or if you have a staff member that missed this presentation and you want to give them tools to go back and learn a little bit more about roles and goals, those would be very helpful. And of course, this conversation will be continued. We'll be doing more training on roles and goals, and we'll, of course, it's also a great subject to bring up at your regional networks, and it's always a learning process as new individuals join CLS programs. It's something that we want to revisit from time to time. So thanks everyone for being with us today. I think that'll be it for the presentation. I hope you're appreciative of us ending just a little early. All right, everyone take care.
Great. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, be expecting an email from me with all the resources and recordings. Have a great rest of the morning.